소리 혹시 안 들리세요?
이제 잘 들립니다. 네네.
네, can you speak
Shall I
up?
start again? Can you speak up?
I hope everyone can hear me now. I'm Julie Thompson, and I'm a linguist here with Dr. Junji Hei to talk about efficient co-teaching. We work together at the attached Gunsan Elementary School of Jeonju National University of Education. To talk about efficient co-teaching, our main subject is going to be about communication. We are going to cover topics such as a responsibility conversation, planning and preparation, and responsiveness in the classroom. The responsibility conversation is something that is necessary for all co-teachers to have at the start of a school year or when they start working together. This is going to cover things such as lesson planning for units, daily lessons, special classes, and activities. What this responsibility conversation entails is who is going to be responsible for having the lessons ready for the day of the class to be taught. This is very important, as I have experience from my first year of teaching, again with my co-teacher, Junji Hei, where we would both prepare a lesson over the same topic to be taught on the same day of a class. Then when it's time for us to go and teach the class, we have two different lessons with different activities, and we both wanted to teach the lesson we made. This would create stress and confusion when we would first go to start the class because of that. But after we talked about who would be responsible for planning certain units and lessons, that type of confusion went away, and it made teaching together a much easier activity to do. As a co-teaching unit, we also do have activity responsibilities. Here, you can see a sample from our textbook. At the bottom left, there is a section titled Listen and Say. These are two short form videos, usually 2 or 3 sentences long, that cover the key expressions that are being taught in the chapter. Jihei and I like to use these to go over grammar with the students. This is an activity that Jihei leads, and I can trust her to lead that and be ready with the prepared questions for the activity every lesson. In the top right hand, you can see something titled Look and Listen. This is a longer form video. This video covers key expressions from this chapter as well as previous chapters for us to teach to our students. I am the one responsible to ask questions for comprehension as well as language understanding for this video. I will ask them questions such as what did they hear, and questions involving key expressions from both the current chapter and the past. There are lots of benefits to having the responsibility conversation. Again, the benefits can be things such as preparedness and knowing what you have to prepare and who is preparing it and for when. Idea creation, because even though Jihei might be responsible for planning a particular lesson, that doesn't mean I can't think of ideas to help her create that lesson. And lastly, it creates a lot of stress relief because I know my responsibilities and she knows her responsibilities, which means we can create a trust within our co-teaching. Next, the importance of having a responsibility conversation. Many Korean teachers don't understand the realities of native teachers. I am fortunate enough to teach in an ideal teaching situation. I have one school and I am at that school 8 hours a day. I co-teach with every English lesson that we are taught to every grade that learns English at our school. Many native teachers don't have that ability. They teach at multiple schools, usually 3 or 4 schools. Sometimes they leave during the middle of the day to go to a different school. And it's very difficult for them to be in charge of lesson planning and daily lessons when they're in those situations. Last year, I had a friend in Iksan. She had 10 schools. She was going to 2 schools every single day. Making sure she had everything organized and ready was always a hassle for her, because if she left her flash drive at a previous school, she would have to make up lessons on the fly because her co-teachers left the responsibility of planning to her. I also know of another native teacher in Imshu. She came to Korea 3 years ago now. When she arrived, she went through the EPIC training, and then they delivered her to her new apartment and left her. She was not told the name of her schools, how many schools she had, any contact information for any co-teachers. She was not told what days to go to her schools or what times to go to her schools. She was not even told how to get to her schools. So when the next day came for her to go to her schools and start her first day of teaching, she had no idea what to do and no idea who to contact or how. As native teachers, we usually do not have cell phones until after we meet with our schools, and she had not had that meeting yet. Eventually, everything got worked out, but the responsibility of everything was put on her, and she had no information and no way to get the information to fulfill the responsibility she was given for those first few days of her teaching. And those types of situations make being an active leader for planning your daily lessons and planning the units very difficult to do. Next, we are going to talk about planning and preparation. I've divided this into 3 categories: textbook structure, planning over the course of a unit, and planning for a daily lesson. Our textbook structure is a theme-based communicative language teaching textbook. It's from Donghua Publishing Company. As you can see, our lessons are divided into 2 lessons per theme. Within the lessons, they are divided into 6 periods. These 6 periods cover the 4 language functions of listening, reading, speaking, and writing. And our textbook provides videos, scripts, PPTs, and worksheets for us to use when we teach. When we plan over the course of the unit, we tend to have several discussions. When I use examples for planning over the course of the unit, I will be using them from our 6th grade textbook lesson 4, How Often Do You Wash Your Hands? First, we do a timetable discussion. This timetable discussion allows us to determine how much time we have to teach a lesson. This is something that is important to do, as schools always have extra activities that are going on, such as sports festivals, music festivals, and things that will keep the students out of the English classroom at random intervals. So we always start with a timetable discussion so we know how many days we have to teach a unit for each class. The timetable discussion is also very important, as our textbooks do not actually give us time to teach new words in the planning. There's none of that in our teachers' manuals. So we create a day when we teach new words, vocabulary, and key expressions to our students. After having a timetable discussion, we go over our lesson focus, goals, and communicative functions. For the chapter 4, How Often Do You Wash Your Hands? That would be that students can speak about frequency and give advice. Lesson focus and goals can be greatly influenced by other factors. Some things like a test. If a chapter will be having a speaking test, we like to ensure that there's a little bit of a speaking activity each single day, or that the speaking activity is combined with other things such as a speaking and writing game or speaking and reading game. Goals are often adjusted based on how much time we have to teach a lesson. This was a very important change back in 2020, as we didn't have as much time to teach lessons because we missed quite a bit of school to ensure the safety of our students. And so those goals were changed to better reflect the amount of time students had with the material. Next, after we talk about our focus and goals, we talk about focus, goals, and communicative functions. We then talk about utilizing language functions, which that's our fancy way of saying what games and activities we are going to be having our students do in the classroom. And the types of games and activities we have our students do in the classroom are determined by what our focus and goals are for those students. Then, after we determine those things, we check our vocabulary, key expressions, and grammar. followed by other important topics. I will go into greater detail over vocabulary, key expressions, grammar, and other topics of importance in the next 2 slides. Here, you can see our vocabulary for chapter 4, how often do you wash your hands, at the top of the screen. The vocabulary provided by the textbook is at the top of the list in black or red, and then we have added vocabulary at the bottom in blue. This added vocabulary is to help encourage the communicative function of our language for the students. These are things that students ask to know about, or we find that they're trying to say, even if we didn't teach it already. Next, we have key expressions, such as how often do you exercise? You should exercise more often, and that was shortened. Below at the bottom of the screen now, you can see the types of PowerPoint slides that we use to teach new words and key expressions to our students. When we teach these to our students, the students are to write the English on their notebook, and the Korean cannot be seen. After they write the English, they should guess what the Korean is, and then we will reveal it. As they are writing it, I will say the words in English, and then the students should repeat it. This means that they cover reading, writing, speaking, and listening on the first day as they are learning these new words. Next, we have grammar. These are some grammar slides that are taught to our students. These are generally prepared by my co-teacher, Jihye, as grammar is something that can be complicated and we don't want to take forever to teach it and try to be more concise. Next, I will cover other topics of importance. So other topics of importance generally deal with the communicative functions of the lesson. These topics for this chapter were things such as having students assess their own lifestyle habits and discussing ways to change or grow their habits. We also wanted to guide our students against overestimating the bad habits of their friends, which could lead to teasing. Last, in a combination of cultural and communicative function, we wanted our students to differentiate between must and should in English. This is because in English, we have 2 words to show obligation, but in Korean, there's only 1. Next, we will be talking about the planning for a daily lesson, and this will be discussed by Dr. Jihye.
네, 안녕하세요. 저는 잠깐 말씀드리겠습니다. 저희가 이제 팀 티칭에 기반해서 원어민 협력 수업에 대해서 이제 말씀드리고 있는데요. 이것은 저희가 교생 실습 기간에 실제로 했던 수업을 저희가 앞에서 어떻게 구성을 했고 진행을 했는지 보여드리고자 합니다. 저희가 지금 있는 입장에서는 매우 특수한 환경이지만 오늘의 주제가 이제 다른 여러 선생님들께서 보셨을 때 이렇게 수업을 구성해가는 과정이라는 것이 있다라는 점을 말씀드리고자 준비를 했습니다. 그래서 수업의 전반에 거쳐서 일단 도입 단계에서는 학생들에게 이렇게 그림을 보여주면서 키 익스프레션에 대해서 이제 묻고 답하는 과정이 있었고 2명의 교사가 있었을 때는 이 과정은 처음에 접근을 했을 때 원어민 선생님께서 학생들에게 직접 질문을 하셨습니다. 그리고 나서는 이제 수업의 전반적인 흐름을 안내를 해가는 과정에서 한국인 교사가 이제 칠판 앞에 서서 이렇게 과정을 안내를 쭉 했고요. 그리고 나서 이제 직접적인 활동에 들어가서는 이렇게 문장을 직접 만들어 보고자 할 때 원어민 교사가 옆에 서서 학생들의 이제 카드를 붙이고 떼는 역할을 돕는 역할을 했었고 저는 이제 결과를 확인하는 과정을 서로 이제 협력해 나가면서 진행을 해 가고 있었습니다. 네, 이제 2번째 단계에 있어서는 저희는 롤플레이를 직접 적용하기 위해서 이제 스크립트를 가지고 시연을 직접 해서 학생들이 이해를 돕도록 이제 코티칭에서 적용을 했었고요. 이 과정에서 학생들이 직접 이제 시연한 것을 통해서 보고 나서 이 부분을 직접 활동으로 해가는 모습을 이제 보여드리고자 사진을 첨부했습니다. 그리고 이제 프로덕션 단계에서는 실제로 이제 연습했던 걸 가지고 학생들이 나와서 롤플레이를 했는데요. 이때 이제 원어민 교사와 함께 이 부분에 대해서 직접적인 피드백을 긍정적으로 해 나가고자 했습니다. 그리고 이제 정의 단계에 있어서는 제가 직접 학생들에게 배운 점이나 느낀 점을 한국어로 이제 편안하게 말할 수 있도록 이 부분을 이끈 부분이 있었습니다. 이렇게 해서 원어민 협력 수업을 진행을 해 갔었고요. 이제 정리 단계에서 홈워크와 도울책에 대해서 줄리 선생님께서 더 말씀해 주시겠습니다.
Thank you. So when we assign homework to our students, it is generally a type of reading or writing homework, and we try to make sure those are as enjoyable as possible for the students to do. A lot of times we try and assign puzzle homework that are things such as word searches or crosswords, as it encourages spelling practice, as well as critical thinking and planning. Next, we also try and do a door check frequently at the end of our classes. These door checks can be mini quizzes in which students have to speak 5 words or sentences they've learned for that day or chapter, or they can be as simple as checking to make sure students have written their name on their homework so that they don't lose the assignment. Next, we are going to talk about responsiveness in the classroom. Responsiveness in the classroom is important, and it covers verbally responding, physically responding, and picking up on cues. Verbally responding is very important in the classroom, especially when we do conversational activities. A type of conversational activity we do on a regular basis is our warm-up. In that activity, I generally ask questions to students such as, what did you do on the weekend? How are you? And then the students would then respond. But in terms of the warm-up with my co-teacher, I usually have that warm-up with her when we are teaching new material and want to mirror the type of response we need the students to do. When we are teaching our 3rd grade students how to answer about their feelings, I need her to respond in the way we are teaching for our chapter. If I were to ask her, Jihei, how are you? And she just goes, fine. Why are you fine? Kunyan. That's not a very good type of verbal responding. We need the goals for the co-teacher to respond with key expressions that the students are learning. Next, we have physically responding. This is very important in terms of classroom management and discipline in the classroom. Of course, kids are kids. They're going to sometimes talk to their friends too much or kick each other under the table. And being able to signal each other that, hey, this needs to get taken care of is really important, and to be able to trust that the other teacher can go to those students and do that. We also want to make sure that we both are able to respond. In a lot of training that Native teachers go through when they come to Korea, it's basically let the Korean teacher do everything with the students. And that's not always ideal in the classroom. Sometimes Jihei is the one leading the activities at the front of the class. And if that's the case, I need to be able to physically respond to the students, talk to them quietly to stop what they are doing, or to help them if one of them is crying because of a game. Next, we have picking up on cues. These can be physical or verbal cues. A simple physical cue is something like trying to get their attention without making too much sound to respond physically to a student. Next, we have verbal cues. The way this is done a lot in our classroom is by asking questions. If we are assigning homework to students and I forget to tell the students something about the homework, such as the reward, Jihei can just verbally ask me the question, such as, and Julie, what do the students get if they all finish their homework? In which case, I know I need to respond with the answer so the students can hear it. And it's a much better way than just going, Julie, you forgot to tell the students. That's never a great way to interact and talk with your co-teacher. Now, that concludes my speaking part of the presentation, and we are available to answer your questions.
네,